The first mistake the Grawl predator made was assuming silence meant weakness. From its perch high in the trees of Calaranine, the massive reptilian hunter scanned the camp below. Its slit-pupilled eyes narrowed on the strange, soft-skinned bipeds clustered around a dim fire. Small. Fragile. Hairless except for patches on their heads and faces. They weren't armored, didn't carry plasma rifles or claw guns, didn't even post sentries. Instead, they were laughing. Laughing in the heart of a predator's hunting ground. The Grawl's tongue flickered out, tasting the air. The smell of roasted roots, and something that might have been meat teased its senses. Hunger gnawed at its belly. Easy prey, it thought. But its gaze faltered when it landed on the smallest creature in the group. A compact, four-legged animal lay curled in the human's lap, its tail twitching in contentment. Large, watchful eyes gleamed in the firelight. It licked one paw, utterly unconcerned with the darkness pressing in around them. The Grawl hissed softly in amusement. So this was what the bipeds kept for comfort. Tiny, clawless things. Pets? The predator's maw split in anticipation. When it struck, it would devour the soft skins first, then save the small creature for last. Around the fire, Corporal Jax Renner poked at the flames with a stick and muttered, "You know, V, I swear this planet wants me dead. First the air nearly fried my lungs, then the mud tried to eat my boots, and now I keep hearing something circling us out there." "Paranoid," Dr. V. Salazar replied, her voice dripping with mockery. She pulled her jacket tighter against the chill night air. "Relax, Jax. We're the only sentients for 200 clicks. Nothing's going to bother us." As if on cue, the small animal in her lap, an earth cat named Nyx, lifted its head. Its ears flicked, whiskers twitching. Then it growled, low and deep, a sound that made both humans pause. Jax raised an eyebrow. "See? Even the fur ball agrees with me." Nyx's eyes glowed in the firelight. The Grawl predator crept lower, claws finding silent purchase on the branch. It was nearly time. A single pounce, and the bipeds would scatter. It could already imagine the taste of blood, the thrill of ripping into flesh. But Jax stood suddenly, his hand resting near his sidearm. "No, seriously, V. He hears something." Dr. Salazar sighed. "Cats always hear something. You'd think after hauling that thing across 3 star systems, you'd get used to its drama." Nyx hissed again. That was when the Grawl launched itself from the tree. The beast plummeted downward, a blur of scales and teeth, its talons outstretched. The humans barely had time to react. Dr. Salazar screamed. Jax drew his pistol, the fire flared in the sudden rush of air. But before the predator's claws could rend flesh, a streak of motion shot upward. Nyx. The cat launched from V's lap like a missile, twisting in midair with a snarl that sounded far too large for its body. Tiny claws flashed as they raked across the Growl's snout. Shock jolted through the predator. It had expected prey, not attack. Its leap faltered, body crashing down into the dirt short of its intended victims. The humans scrambled back. Jax fired 2 shots, blue plasma rounds slamming into the predator's side. The Grawl roared, staggering, its reptilian eyes burning with sudden rage. And there, planted between the humans and the beast, tail arched like a whip, was Nyx. The little cat's fur bristled, back curved, eyes slitted into daggers of green fire. It hissed once, a sound so sharp it sliced through the predator's pride. The Grawl froze. For the first time in its long hunting life, it hesitated. Predators recognized predators, and what stared back at it from those green eyes was not prey. It was something older, leaner, and infinitely more dangerous than its small body should have allowed. "Holy!" Jax whispered, lowering his gun slightly. "V, your cat just—" "Shut up," she hissed back. Her hands shook, but her eyes never left the scene. The Grawl growled, shaken but unwilling to retreat. It slashed forward, claws tearing into the earth near Nyx. The cat didn't flinch. It darted sideways, faster than the Grawl expected, then swiped a paw across the predator's nose again. Tiny claws left burning lines in sensitive flesh. The Grawl yelped. A predator of 200 kilos of muscle and scale yelped. and something in the balance shifted. The humans realized they weren't the prey here. Dr. Salazar clutched Jax's arm, whispering, "If he keeps it distracted." "Yeah," Jax breathed, already raising his pistol again. "I can put this bastard down." Nyx snarled once more, then darted forward, weaving between the Growl's massive talons like a shadow with fangs. Each strike was calculated: eyes, nose, sensitive joints. It was as if the cat knew where to hit, as though generations of evolution had prepared it not just to survive, but to mock predators twice, 10 times its size. Jax's plasma rounds lit the clearing again, striking the beast's flank. The Growl bellowed in fury and pain. It tried to lunge at the humans, but every time it moved forward, the cat was there, slashing, hissing, forcing it back with sheer audacity. By the time the predator realized it was outmatched, not in size, not in strength, but in will, it was too late. Nyx leapt onto its back, claws sinking into scale. The Growl bucked and spun, but the cat clung on, raking furrows that burned like fire. The humans shouted, plasma fire seared the night, and at last, howling in pain, the predator stumbled backward into the treeling. And then it fled. Branches cracked. The forest swallowed it. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Nyx trotted back into the firelight, tail high, and calmly licked one paw. Dr. Salazar collapsed onto a log, trembling. We just survived a Growl. Because of him." She pointed at the cat. Jax holstered his pistol and stared at Nyx in awe. "Remind me never to call him a fur ball again." The cat purred, as if in agreement. But both humans knew the truth: the Growl would return. No predator nursed humiliation lightly, and this one had been scarred, physically, yes, but worse, in pride. The stakes had changed. It had thought them prey. Now it knew better. And somewhere deep in the forest, licking its wounds and seething with fury, the predator vowed that when it returned, it would not stop until the little beast and its humans were nothing but bones in the dirt. The hunt was far from over. The forest didn't sleep that night. Every insect hush, every branch snapping in the distance, every whisper of wind carried a message Jax and Dr. V couldn't ignore: the Growl predator was still out there. Watching. Waiting. Nursing wounds and rage. Jax sat with his pistol across his lap, staring into the fire. Sweat beaded his forehead though the air was cold. "That thing's not gone. Not for good." Dr. Salazar hugged her knees, eyes darting toward the shadows beyond the firelight. "Of course it's not. Apex predators don't just quit. It'll be back. And angrier." Between them, Nyx sprawled on a blanket, grooming himself with smug serenity. Every so often his ears twitched, tracking sounds no human could detect. Then he'd purr, as if reassuring them both that he was in control. Jax pointed at the cat with the stick he'd been using to poke the fire. "I swear, V, he's enjoying this. He just saved our asses," he said, exhaustion tinging her voice. "He's allowed to enjoy it." Jax muttered something about smug little fur demons, but didn't press further. Hours crawled by. The fire burned low. And then... snap. Jax was on his feet instantly, gun raised. V scrambled up beside him. Nyx's ears swiveled toward the sound, tail lashing like a whip. Another snap. Louder this time. Then a rustle. Something moved just outside the circle of light. Jax tightened his grip on the pistol. His heart hammered in his chest. "It's back." The shadows stirred. Leaves parted. And for a heartbeat, Jax thought the Growl had returned already. But no, what stepped into the firelight wasn't the same beast. It was smaller. Leaner. Scaled, yes, but not scarred. Yellow eyes flicked nervously between the humans and the cat. Another predator, juvenile maybe. The Growl had sent a scout. The young predator sniffed the air, nostrils flaring. Then it hissed, low and tentative. Behind it, another hiss echoed. Then another. Dr. V's stomach dropped. "Oh no. Jax. He's not coming back alone." As if summoned by her words, the forest erupted with sound, shuffling, guttural growls, the crack of branches. Multiple sets of eyes glowed in the darkness, ringed around the camp. Jack swore under his breath. Pack tactics? They hunt solo. I thought they hunted solo. They do, Bee said, her voice trembling. Unless one of them gets humiliated. Realization hit Jax like a blow. The growl they'd wounded, scarred, shamed, it had rallied others. Not for food. For vengeance. The first juvenile predator stepped closer. And Nyx moved. The cat rose slowly, fur bristling, tail puffed into a massive plume. He stepped between the humans and the encroaching beasts, shoulders rolling like a miniature tiger. A growl built in his throat, deep and resonant, far too large for his size. The juveniles faltered. But the leader arrived. The scarred growl emerged from the trees, scales gleaming where plasma had burned it. Its chest heaved with fury. Fresh blood streaked its muzzle from some unlucky forest creature it had vented its anger on. It locked eyes with Nyx, lips curling into a predator's sneer. The camp exploded into chaos. The pack surged forward, juveniles flanking, the leader driving from behind. Jax fired, plasma bolts searing the night. One juvenile shrieked and collapsed, but two more bounded over its body. Bee grabbed the emergency flare gun from their supply crate, firing into the treeling. The burst of magnesium light blinded the pack for a moment, halting their charge. Nyx leapt into the distraction, a black streak across the dirt. He darted under snapping jaws, raking claws across tender paws. One predator howled and reared back, tripping into another. But there were too many. Jax! V screamed. We can't fight them head on. Then we make them fight dirty. Jax growled. He grabbed one of the ration packs from their supply pile, ripped it open, and hurled the contents into the fire. The blaze roared to life, oily smoke billowing upward in a choking cloud. The growl pack hissed, stumbling back as their eyes watered. But the leader pushed forward anyway, shrieking a hunting cry. V! Supplies, now! Jax barked. V understood instantly. She tore into their survival kit, yanking out chemical canisters, ropes, and the compact mining charges they'd been carrying to clear paths. They'd planned to use them for science. Now they'd use them for war. She hurled Jax the charges. Make it count! He slapped one against a tree trunk, pressed the primer, and dove back as it detonated. The explosion shattered the tree, sending it crashing down into the pack. One predator was crushed instantly, the others scattered, shrieking. But the leader, the scarred growl, charged straight through the smoke. It slammed into Jax, sending him flying. His pistol skittered across the dirt. Jax rolled to a stop, groaning, ribs aching. The growl loomed over him, talons raised. And then Nyx struck. The cat launched from the shadows, landing squarely on the growl's head. Claws dug into sensitive flesh. The predator roared, thrashing wildly, trying to dislodge the tiny fury shredding its face. V! Jax shouted, coughing. Now! V grabbed the flare gun again, aimed, and fired straight into the growl's open mouth. The flare ignited inside its throat. The predator shrieked, choking, flames licking from its jaws. It stumbled backward, crashing into the undergrowth, howls echoing through the night. The rest of the pack, suddenly leaderless and terrified, bolted into the forest. Branches snapped, roars faded, until silence swallowed the camp once more. Nyx padded back to the fire, whiskers singed, fur puffed, but otherwise unscathed. He sat calmly licking a paw. Jack staggered upright, clutching his ribs. That was insane! V dropped to her knees beside Nyx, scooping him up despite his indignant squirming. You're insane, she whispered. Then, looking at Jax. They'll come back. You know that, right? Not just the pack. The whole species. Once word spreads that a cat and two humans made them bleed. Jax grimaced, but there was a fire in his eyes. Then we give them something to really fear. The stakes had changed again. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was war. And humanity had just revealed its first teeth. The dawn never truly came on Calara 9. Mist clung to the jungle like a shroud, thick and heavy, filtering the sunlight into dim streaks. Jax and Dr. V stood at the edge of their ruined camp, both exhausted, both wired on adrenaline, both knowing that last night's battle was only the opening act. The Grawl had fled, yes. But predators didn't suffer humiliation quietly. Packs spread word through roars and scent trails, stories carved into the memories of their kind. And last night, the impossible had happened, prey had bitten back. Now, the whole jungle would answer. Jax leaned against a tree, wincing as his ribs protested. His pistol sat holstered but charged, a constant weight against his thigh. "So, V," he said, forcing a grin. "You're the smart one. What's the play when you've got one angry lizard already gunning for you, and he brings all his cousins for a family reunion?" Dr. V pushed her glasses up her nose, though the lenses were cracked. "Normally? You don't stick around to find out." She glanced at Nix. The cat was perched on a rock, tail twitching, green eyes locked on the fog-drenched tree-ling. He hadn't slept. He hadn't stopped watching. Jax followed her gaze. But we're stranded until the evac shuttle cycles back in 3 days," he said grimly. "So unless you can fight off an entire species solo, we need to hold out." Jax exhaled slowly. 3 days. He shook his head. "Might as well be 3 centuries. The forest answered him with a roar. It rolled across the mist like thunder, deep and guttural, shaking leaves from branches. A call to arms. A challenge. The Grawl were coming. The first wave hit at noon. Jax spotted them first, shadows streaking between the trees, fast and coordinated. He shouted a warning, and the clearing erupted in chaos. 6 Grawl burst from the mist, scales gleaming, jaws snapping. Plasma fire lit the air as Jax unloaded his pistol, dropping one before it reached the fire pit. V hurled another mining charge, detonating it midair, the blast hurling 2 predators back into the tree-ling. But the others kept coming. Nix launched himself into the fray, weaving between snapping jaws, his claws a blur. He darted up one Grawl's leg, raked his claws across its eyes, and leapt free before its jaws clamped shut. The blinded predator shrieked and stumbled into another, sowing chaos in their formation. Jax fought like a soldier possessed, ducking under claws, firing until his pistol overheated. V grabbed a jagged tree branch and swung with desperate strength, catching one Grawl across the snout. But then the roar came again, closer. Louder. The leader. The scarred Grawl burst through the mist, eyes blazing with hatred, its pack parting to let it through. Plasma burn still scarred its flank, but the fire in its chest had only grown. It ignored Jax, ignored V. Its eyes locked on Nix. It charged. Nix stood his ground. The cat's back arched, fur bristling, tail puffed, eyes narrowing to slits of emerald fire. He hissed once, a challenge. The Grawl struck. Nix twisted at the last instant, darting under the predator's talons. The Grawl's claws gouged the earth, sparks flying from the impact. Nix leapt onto its shoulder, claws sinking into muscle. The leader roared, thrashing, spinning, slamming against trees to shake the tiny attacker. Nix clung on, raking his claws across the Grawl's face, shredding old scars into new wounds. Jax fired again, shots searing into the beast's flank. V hurled another charge, detonating it against its tail. But nothing stopped its fury. With a guttural roar, the Grawl slammed itself backward into a tree. The impact rattled the clearing. Nix was flung loose, twisting through the air, landing hard on the dirt. He hissed, scrambled upright, but the Grawl was already upon him. "No!" V screamed, sprinting forward. She hurled herself at the predator, swinging the last flare gun like a club. It cracked against the Grawl's snout, earning a roar of pain, but it wasn't enough. The Grawl swiped, talons catching V across the side. She cried out, collapsing into the dirt, blood staining her jacket. Jax saw red. With a roar that matched the predator's, he charged. He tackled the Grawl's side, ramming his plasma pistol point blank against its ribs and pulling the trigger until the weapon overheated in his hand. The blast scorched scale and flesh, the stench of burning reptile filling the air. The Grawl howled, staggering. It raised a claw to slash Jax in half. And Nix struck again. The cat launched straight into its face, claws sinking into its eyes. The Grawl screamed, blinded, flailing wildly. Jax dove clear, dragging V with him. The pack, seeing their leader falter, surged forward in desperation. Jax barely had time to think. He grabbed the final mining charge from V's pack, armed it, and hurled it at the charging Grawl. The explosion lit the clearing like a second sun. Trees shattered, dirt rained down, and when the smoke cleared, the scarred Grawl lay sprawled in the crater, burned, broken, unmoving. The surviving pack members froze. They stared at the body of their leader. Then, one by one, they turned and slunk back into the mist, their growls fading into silence. The battle was over. But the war was not. Jax collapsed beside V, his chest heaving. "You alive?" she groaned, clutching her side. "Define alive." He laughed shakily, relief and exhaustion colliding. Nix padded over, fur scorched, whiskers bent, one ear nicked, but his eyes still burned with the same defiance. He leapt onto V's lap, curled up, and began to purr. Despite the blood, despite the exhaustion, V smiled. "He's insane." "No," Jax corrected softly, watching the cat with newfound awe. "He's human." They both knew it wasn't over. The Grawl had lost their leader, but they wouldn't forget. They would return, more organized, more furious. The jungle itself seemed to breathe with that promise. But for the first time, Jax and V didn't feel like prey. Because Nix had shown them something vital. Rage could be small. Defiance could be quiet. And fangs didn't always need to be big to be sharp. The predator had seen easy prey. What it found instead was the oldest hunter humanity had ever known, born not of size but of will. And the Grawl would never look at humans, or their cats, the same way again. The war beast had slammed into the metal wall, denting the corridor as the human's cat, a creature the predators had written off as harmless fluff, refused to let go. Juno's fangs were buried deep into the alien's throat, and the predator shrieked, its talons raking wildly at the air as blood spattered across the walls and arterial sprays. Elira staggered backward, her chest heaving, eyes wide at the impossible sight. "That thing," she stammered. "It's winning!" Captain Rourke didn't bother to answer. His rifle was raised, trained on the beast, but even he hesitated to pull the trigger. Juno wasn't just attacking, it was dismantling the monster with precise, surgical fury, like it knew exactly where to bite, where to tear. Each movement was controlled, calculated. This wasn't random animal rage. This was strategy. The corridor thundered with the sound of snapping bone. Juno leapt back, landing with feline grace, her green eyes glowing in the emergency lights. The predator collapsed, convulsing before going still. Silence followed. The soldiers stared. Even the hum of the damaged ship seemed muted. "Your pet," Elira whispered, almost reverent. "Just killed a war beast." Rourke bent down, wiping his face where a fleck of blood had landed. "Correction," he said grimly. "She just taught us these things aren't invincible." He glanced at Juno, who calmly sat, grooming her blood-soaked paw as if she had merely swatted a mouse. "And she did it while looking cute." A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the human soldiers. Relief mixed with awe. But the respite was short. The ship trembled again. A metallic roar echoed from deeper within, shaking the very hull. The predators weren't done, not even close. "Rourke!" Elira hissed, her eyes scanning the readouts flickering across her wrist device. "There are more. The flagship has sent an entire hunting party. They're moving through the lower decks. They know we're here." The captain's jaw tightened. "Then we hold." Another voice broke through, the communications officer, gasping. "Sir, they're targeting life support. If they rupture the core, this ship's atmosphere will vent. We'll all be dead before backup arrives." Rourke's mind raced. Humans weren't in a position for a head-on fight. They were outnumbered, low on ammo, and the predators had the advantage in raw strength. But now they had something else. Something the enemy didn't understand. His eyes flicked to Juno. "We're going to use the cat." Elira looked like she'd swallowed a rock. Excuse me? That's not a tactical unit, that's an animal. You saw what she just did. Rourke's voice was iron. The predators underestimate her. That's their blind spot. And we're going to exploit it. The alien scientist shivered. Captain, you humans are insane. Correct, Rourke muttered, sliding a fresh charge into his rifle. And that's why we survive. They pushed deeper into the ship, Juno trotting ahead like a ghost in the shadows. Wherever she went, the predators' hunting packs faltered. Some didn't even have the chance to fight back before a blur of fur and claws ripped their throats out. Others fell into chaos, distracted by something so small, so seemingly harmless, that their discipline shattered. For every beast that fell, the soldiers grew bolder. For every corridor Juno cleared, their path forward sharpened. And the predators? They began to whisper among themselves, their roars less certain. The prey was fighting back, and worse, their war beasts were dying. By the time the humans reached the life support chamber, the predators had rallied. A massive chieftain, scarred and armored in bone, waited there with a squad of his strongest. His voice carried through the chamber, guttural and furious. Humans! Weak things! We came for your fear, and we found a trick. A shadow. Do you think your little creature will save you? He raised his clawed hand, snapping his fingers. Behind him, cages opened, and from them emerged predators even larger than before, bred for slaughter. Their eyes glowed with hunger. The humans faltered. Even Rourke felt the pit in his stomach. These were no ordinary hunters. But Juno padded forward. Tail swishing. Head low. Her green eyes fixed on the massive leader. The predator chieftain laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. This is your weapon? Rourke smiled, humorless. No. That's your mistake. The fight erupted like an explosion. The chieftain lunged, claws slicing the air, but Juno was already gone, darting under him, faster than the eye could follow. She launched herself at the nearest beast, claws finding the vulnerable spot under its jaw. The monster screeched, collapsing as blood geysered from its throat. The humans opened fire, gunfire echoing like thunder. Predators fell, shrieking, but the survivors pressed on, tearing through bulkheads, shrugging off wounds that would have killed lesser beings. Juno moved through them like death incarnate. She wasn't just a cat anymore, she was something more, something ancient. Her body twisted through impossible angles, her strikes aimed with brutal intelligence. Every swipe left a predator crippled. Every bite left them howling. And then she faced the chieftain. The giant warlord swatted her aside, sending her skidding across the metal deck. For the first time, Juno hissed, not in pain, but in fury. Her back arched, her fur bristled, and her eyes burned brighter than before. The predator laughed. Tiny beast! You are nothing! But when Juno leapt again, there was no hesitation. She soared higher, faster, landing squarely on his head. Her claws drove into his skull, piercing armor and bone. The warlord thrashed, smashing himself against walls, roaring in disbelief. And then, with a sickening crunch, he fell. The chamber went silent. The surviving predators froze, staring at the corpse of their leader, slain not by human guns, not by alien weapons, but by a creature they hadn't even bothered to count as a threat. Juno leapt down, calmly licking her paw again. The predators broke. Their war cries dissolved into panic as they fled, abandoning the ship, abandoning their dead. The humans held the chamber, battered but alive. Rourke lowered his rifle, staring at the cat. Never thought I'd say this, but remind me to promote her. Elira shook her head slowly, still trying to process. Your species, how do you do this? You take the smallest, most unassuming creature, and somehow, it becomes this. Rourke crouched down, scratching behind Juno's ears. She purred, nuzzling his hand as though nothing had happened. How? He echoed. His smile was tired but fierce. Simple. We stopped pretending to be prey. When rescue finally arrived, the flagship was secure. The predators had fled into the void, their fear trailing behind them like a shadow. Stories of what had happened spread quickly, of how humanity's pet had brought a predator empire to its knees. Elira recorded it herself, broadcasting to her people. Her final words echoed through the channels of half a dozen worlds. Be wary of humans, yes. But be wary, too, of what follows them. For even their smallest companions bear fangs sharper than death. Rourke chuckled when he heard it. Looking at Juno, curled comfortably in his lap, he muttered, Good girl. And for once, in the cold silence of deep space, humanity wasn't the only thing the predators feared. Sparkles, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the Void Narratives for more HFY sci-fi tales where humanity proves the galaxy wrong.